Right, good morning, welcome back. Okay, question. Can you justify a metal lathe in your life? Can you justify investing in a lathe to make bits and pieces for your bike? Well, it's a lot of money and a lot of people say no, because it is also a space and a commitment to have it there. And will you use it enough? That's the question we always ask ourselves. Well, I'm lucky enough to be of the generation where we had metal work at school, but sadly kids today don't learn that. It's not part of a normal, ordinary education. So do people today buy a lathe? No, they probably buy a 3D printer, but when it's metal parts that need to be tough and strong, yeah, there are metal printers you can buy, but my goodness, are they expensive. It's a lathe to make little bits and pieces for your bike, because you can buy them quite cheaply, but can you justify them? Will you use them to make a simple spacer for an exhaust system? Something you might do for your bike over and over again if you put aftermarket bits on that don't quite fit. This is when you'll need or can use a lathe. Let's show you what the job is and you'll see what we've got to make. Pair of spacers, it's got two exhausts, one either side, and where the exhaust hanger comes down, the exhaust doesn't quite meet it. It's an aftermarket exhaust and it sits 20mm too far away from the hanger. There's a gap. Now you could just put a bolt through and bolt that in and it will pull the exhaust in by 20mm, but it will potentially compromise the joint at the bottom of the exhaust because it will pull the pipe in and it will distort the actual sleeve joint at the bottom, and that's not what you want. You want it to be correct and sit exactly where it naturally falls. So it needs a spacer, 20mm diameter, that goes right there between the exhaust and the hanger. So we need it 20mm long. There's our first dimension. The second one is this flange that it bolts to is 26mm in diameter. So he needs it 20mm long and 26mm in diameter, so it fills the space and it looks like it's meant to be there. And also he's going to bolt it together with an 8mm bolt. So effectively it needs an 8mm hole right through the middle. So there's my three cutting operations on the lathe. It needs to be cut to 20mm, diameter of 26, and an inside diameter bore of 8. So let's get that cut out of aluminium, I think, nice and light. Right, just before I get started, this is not a machine shop. This is my general garage. I do everything in here. Now, you ask any machinist, they'll tell you they would never allow sanding and grinding and a blast booth anywhere near their machines. That's why their machine shops are generally a closed room with a door, and you're not allowed to do anything but machining in there because they don't want dust getting on the machine. They don't want it getting in the slideways. So as this is my general garage and I have to do everything in here, I don't have separate rooms, I keep my machine drowned in WD-40 to capture all that dust that's going to land on it over the course of a few weeks, and then wipe it all off and clean it as you just saw. Just clean it all down completely so it's absolutely spotless, re-oil all the slideways so everything is slick and moves nicely, and none of that dust can do any damage to the slideways, which have to remain nice and accurate and spotlessly clean. Anyway, I'm all ready to go now. Now let's select a piece of metal to make these two parts from. Right, a great source of materials, if you're going to do this and you can buy yourself a little lathe, rather than spending loads of money on big long lengths of bar that you're then going to machine down, you can buy a little box of bar ends. Now, I'm very lucky. This was a gift from a machinist who watches this channel, and he sent me these. They're effectively the waste, the offcuts, the scrap, and the machining community refers to them as bar ends. Not to be confused with bar ends. These are the end of the bar that's left in the machine when they've done a commercial job. They don't do anything with it, it's just scrap. Some of the companies will sell it literally for scrap. Others will put it together in a little mixed box. I've got a mixed box here of aluminium and stainless steel, from little pieces like that to big fat chunks that have got large holes in, to a massive 65mm piece like that. And these little boxes of bar ends are wonderful because they're like the gift that just keeps giving. You can reach in here, have a rummage. There's a piece, I could cut both of them out of that. It's about 35mm, machine that down to 26, cut them both off once I bored the hole. These are a way cheaper way of doing it than buying a big length, because you never know the diameter you need. And these come all assorted different sizes. And as it's scrap, it's actually a good way of recycling leftover metal that the industry doesn't use. Anyway, I'm gonna have a rummage through, find the piece that will do the job, get started. Right, I found a couple of pieces of material. That's 35 by 60, so that will cut both of them. And that's a piece of acetol or Delrin. You all know this stuff, I use it all the time. It's like an engineering plastic. I can machine a couple out of that as well. It's just wide enough. So he's got a black Street Fighter bike. So black all the way through, they will never scratch or anything, super lightweight, and it will resist the heat at that end of the exhaust and be fine. So I'll make him a couple of pairs out of each, so he's got an option on which ones to use. I also want to say I'm not a machinist, and I'm certainly not an engineer. I'm just a basic mechanic, and I'm doing this because I have these old skills from school when I was a boy. So I'm just doing something that I retained. And if you want to do it, it really isn't that hard to make a start doing basic things like this. But if you want to learn how to do it from people online, then check out Joe Piezinski. Joe Pie has got a channel, he's in Texas. He actually does online lesson tutorials, and you can learn the engineering side of it from him on how to actually make more complicated things than a basic spacer. So if you're going to buy a little lathe and a box of bar ends, then Joe Pie is another piece of your equipment to learn from. Anyway, I'm going to shut up waffling and just get on with it. And there we are. It doesn't get any simpler than that. 3 basic operations. Skin the outside to diameter, bore a hole in it, cut it off to length. Easy as that. And there's so much other stuff you could use one of these for on your motorcycle. Just imagine it. Custom wheel spacers to fit alternative wheels. Handlebar weights. I've made loads of them. Foot pegs. And the list goes on. So if you're thinking of buying yourself a lathe and you're wondering if you use it enough, you definitely will. I'll see you next time.